In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about building a learning management system or an LMS on Bubble. I'm also going to show you around a real LMS application that we built for our own students. That way you have an example of what something like this could look like. So if you have a video course, training material, quizzes, assignments that you want to organize in a custom way, this is a fantastic platform to do it with no code, where you're not only organizing all of the content, but you're also able to design the interface exactly how you want. Like I said, I'm going to take you through a few real life interface examples that we've put together for our own students so you can see what's possible, but we want to make sure that we cover all of the key aspects that make an LMS platform successful, not just for you as the admin of your course, but also your students. Here's an overview of the LMS application that we've built for our own courses. The user is going to start on a home page and they can access any course that they've subscribed to, either here in the center or through the menu on the left-hand side. Keep in mind that we custom designed everything to make it really easy to navigate. So let's go into our fast track course here. All of our lessons are video lessons, and they've all been organized into different modules, so the user can go in a specific order here. So at a top level, they can see what their completion status is, they can resume their current lesson, they can see how many lessons are within each module. If we open up one of the modules here, it'll expand to see all of the lessons. Again, the application can keep track of where they're at. Going into any one of these lessons will show a video player. We have an integration with Vimeo so that we can host all of our videos externally and then display the video player here so that it's showing everything at full resolution. They have all sorts of controls using the video player. That way we don't have to worry about managing that. They can see things at full screen. They can play things at a higher speed if they want. And we've also given the user the ability to take any custom notes that are private to them. Okay, so they can navigate to the next lesson from here if they need. With some of our videos, we have additional timestamps and notes for them to provide some extra context. Within the menu, we also have some extra materials that the student can get to, such as a demo application that they can access, some FAQs, they can access all of their notes here that they've been taking throughout the course. And of course, they can go back to the main menu to jump over to another course if necessary. Within this application, we also have an account management system so that they can update their credentials to the application. If there is billing involved, they'll also be able to access their payments. Now, that's just a quick overview of that application. We'll come back to it a little bit later so that we can dig in a bit further behind the scenes. But just keep in mind that every LMS is different. You may want to have more gamification in your system. You may want to create more of a community feature so that students can interact with each other. There's a lot that you can do here, and it just comes down to how you structure your application's database and the logic that you put in, as well as the design. So we're going to cover the key aspects that you'll want to include no matter what type of LMS you're building. The first thing you'll want to tackle is your content management system, or your CMS. This is where you're going to organize all of your training materials. So the lesson titles, the descriptions, any files that need to be associated with them, like audios, videos, PDFs, if you're going to supply extra documentation for your students. If you have assignments or quizzes, right? If things need to be reviewed that your students are submitting, this is an area that you'll need to create for yourself, maybe even a team that is helping you organize and manage all of the content. It's not accessible to your users. You can think of this as like a base station, but it's absolutely necessary that you create something that's going to work for you to make it sustainable and easy to manage long term, right? This is the content management system. And in Bubble, it all starts with organizing your data structure properly. So setting up the right data types and fields, option sets, so that everything that goes into your training content can be organized very well in the application. That way, when you present it back to your students, it's as efficient as possible. It's easy to navigate. Next, you'll want to address the learning interface for your students. And the last thing you want is for this interface to get in the way of their learning. Some of this is going to depend on the volume of material that you have for them to go through, right? How many lessons, how many chapters? Do you have a lot of extra resources that you're sharing with them? as well as your own business model for their access to the content. So do you have areas that are locked off? Do they need to fulfill some prerequisites before they can move forward, right? You might have some logic that needs to hide certain areas depending on what their relationship is to the course, maybe what their progress level is in the course. Some other helpful touches that you can include here are a way for your users to take notes for themselves, to see what their progress levels are looking like. If you have deadlines or due dates, making it very clear what those are. If you need to surface notifications for them, you can certainly do that. And overall, just organizing the content in a way that makes it super clear what sequence they need to be following, if they're allowed to jump around or not. If your course is one that is full of multimedia, you'll want to have very specific layouts that make it easy to read text, play audio, and view videos. Every type of lesson may have its own requirements, so don't be afraid to create separate designs that are specific to each of those media types. In addition to this, don't forget about your responsive design. Your students may want to access your course through their mobile devices. And with an LMS system, things can get very overwhelming if you try to put everything that you see on desktop on a mobile screen as well. So consider simplifying what is visible on a smaller device to make it easy for your users to navigate. If you're just getting started with this in your Bubble application, what I recommend is creating some test content in your database, a few lessons, maybe a few chapters if you've got them organized like that, so that you can start previewing your interface as a student would. Give yourself some variety in terms of your test data so that you can run these pages and actually see your work in action. By the way, if any of this has been helpful so far, our Fast Track course, which we have built on our own LMS application, teaches folks how to leverage Bubble vastly more in depth. If you're looking for a way to build correctly on Bubble by following self-led, structured videos, this might be useful for you. So you can check it out over at coachingnocodeapps.com/fast-track. Now let's take another look at our own LMS application behind the scenes a bit more. Here we have several data types to help us organize all of our content. We have lessons, modules, notes that are generated by users themselves, either private notes that they're taking for themselves, plus questions that we ask after a certain number of lessons just to make sure that they're retaining the information to give themselves a self-check in case they need to go back and review, and additional resources that accompany some of our modules. Now, this has all been organized to help the user go through the course in a specific sequence. We have gone through a few different updates to all of our courses, so we may have some internal notes that we keep for ourselves in the lessons. You can see that some of our fields here even relate to just the visual properties that we want in the design. Don't be afraid to do that. Sometimes the fields in your data structure may have less to do with the actual content and more to do with how it functions in the interface and how your users are going to interact with everything. So just with these data types alone, we can create our entire course system with additional resources for the users to move through at their own pace. Over here, we have a content management system that we've created. Again, this is something that's internal to us so that we can create all of the records in an interface that's a little bit more useful compared to Bubble's own app editor. Now, of course, we can do these record creations and edits within the editor itself, but you hit some limitations. There's a point where the way that you manage your own content is going to need to trigger additional workflows so that other things can happen at the same time, especially when it comes to relating records to one another. Not to mention, if you have a team of people that is helping you manage your content, you may not want to give everybody access to the backend editor, where they can kind of change more in the app itself. So having a formal front-end interface for anyone who is responsible for managing content can keep everything much more under control. You can create and restrict access to this screen and just have a way to manage all of your content in a more custom and automated way. Going over to the design canvas, everything has been custom laid out and configured to make it intuitive for our users to navigate and easy for us to manage on the back end in a way that makes sense for the content we're providing here. For example, this indicator here that tells the user whether they've completed the lesson or not is based off of a specific condition that checks the data in the database and makes that visual appearance change. There aren't any templates that are being referenced here. We put everything together piece by piece in a way that we wanted for our course. If we go over to the group that shows the video lessons, you can see that there is an integration with a video player so that we can pull in our video content that's actually hosted on Vimeo. This makes it really easy for us to manage even further, again, because we don't need to recreate a video player and all the functionality around those standard tools. We just need to have a reliable system that plays those videos when a user comes to it. But alongside of this, we have our own custom notes area so that users can type their notes. We can display descriptions about the lesson to provide more context there. Again, each section that you see here in this design has been custom configured according to our own preferences. We're not boxed in any way, and this is the level of detail that we want out of an LMS system that we fully control. Okay, we'll go through a bit more in just a minute, but first I want to walk through a few other capabilities you may want to leverage for your own LMS app on Bubble. Bringing your LMS application to life is really going to happen in your workflow logic, as well as your visual element designs and any conditions you might create there as well. So this is how users will interact with your app. So if they type something in, such as a note, you can capture that information. That way they can come back to it later and see all of their notes in one place. If they've achieved an important milestone in your course, you can show an alert message, right? Make that very visible to them and really personalize your students' experience. But there are a few pieces of logic that you'll want to make sure you have in place no matter what type of LMS app you're building in Bubble. The first thing is user account creation. You'll want to implement this at minimum so that your users can get access to the content. Bubble has a lot of different features and functions available to help you set up a user account with an email and password for credentials. You can manage passwords, you can create accounts for other people on their behalf if you'd like. A lot of things that you can do there, but you'll want to have a formal user onboarding system so that your students can get access to the material. Now, in your case, you may have payments involved. Maybe it's a one-time payment to get access, or perhaps a subscription. So if you're going to integrate with a payment gateway, that can also be layered in. The next area of logic is how you organize your lessons to be presented for your students. So number one, you may want to sequence your lessons. That way they go through in a specific order. That's something that you need to start by organizing in your data structure. That way we know that this is lesson 1, the next lesson is lesson 2, so you actually assign them their position in that sequence. You may also want to lock off access to lessons based on any prerequisites. Maybe they have to complete each lesson before they move on to the next, or at least complete an entire chapter before they move on to the next. One of the best things you can do to give your users a great experience in your app is to keep them informed about their progress in the course. So whether it's as simple as an in-app notification letting them know where they're at, or maybe it's more of an email reminder that you send them after a few days of being absent. This kind of engagement is not only going to be helpful for your user retention, but it'll also make the experience more personalized. This is why gamification is so popular. That constant feedback for the user keeps them interested, and you want this for something like an LMS because you want your students to complete the training material. You want them to get through the whole thing and not abandon it. You can also check to see how much time has passed since their last engagement with the application, and you can create timed workflows, scheduled workflows to prompt them to come back into the app if necessary. Now, jumping back into our own application, one of our most important areas of logic is account management. Our application is actually tied to several external tools that really tap into business operations, and this all has to work very reliably and very securely. So for example, in the account page that we've created within our LMS app, our users can change their credentials to access their app, with an email address and a password. They can access all previous invoices so that they can download them for their own records. Depending on the training material that they have purchased, whether it is a one-time payment or a subscription, they can update their credit card if necessary or cancel their subscription plan. They have access to all billing related functions from this page. Now, internally on our end, we also have connections to our email marketing platform, our accounting systems. This way, it's a total business operations tool so that the Bubble application really serves as the primary source of truth. All right, so when it comes down to it, an LMS application is really about managing your content, tracking progress of your users, being able to stay engaged with your users, right? Keep them coming back so that they can complete all of the material. And every LMS is going to be a little different with all of those features. You may also have some custom capabilities that you want to add in that are unique to your needs. So being able to do this in a really custom way without any code is exactly why we want to use Bubble for building an LMS. So I hope you found this helpful, and if it was, definitely check out the content you're about to see on the next screen. It'll help you take things even further.